I love talking with passionate business owners. Their enthusiasm is irresistible, their knowledge is invaluable, and their wisdom holds the keys to transforming your passion into a successful business. As a marketing strategist, I help people around the world innovate and grow their business. I'm Jay Hamilton Roth, and this is Business with Passion. Today's episode features guests who continued their family's business. Loren Poncia's family has lived and farmed on the same ranch site in Tomales, California since 1902, when his great-grandfather Angelo first immigrated to the United States and started working there. His family-owned Stemple Creek Ranch raises 100% Angus beef and lamb.
My passion is grass and working with cattle and selecting good genetics, and my other passion is people. I love people and working with people, and I love seeing people smile, and I love to smile and make people happy. And so when one of my clients tells me it's the best beef they ever tasted, I'm really happy about that because, you know, it feels good. I would not be here if I wasn't fortunate enough to have a family who came here 100 years ago and acquired the property. And I've been fortunate enough to be one of the heirs to the property on this ranch over here. So that's allowed me the ability to actually go with my passion and not have a huge amount of debt load to enter the business. I thought I was gonna be a dairyman when I grew up. I went to college. About 3 years into college, I realized that if we just maintain status quo and do the same thing we've been doing for the last 30 to 50 years, selling to the conventional market with the peaks and the valleys and trying to reduce our costs, that we will eventually fail. And even more important is the next generation will not want to come back and be part of a so-so business. Our goal is not to be the biggest and best grass-fed beef producers and lamb producers in the country, but we want to be able to sell everything that we raise on this property locally, to what I say locally, within 100 miles of home preferred. We now have over 40 different certified organic pastures on this 750 acres. We have 200 mother cows. We call the mother cows are the black cows that you see out in the field with calf on their side. The babies are born usually about September, and then they are weaned off of their mother. Usually naturally the mother will do what we call kick them off. They basically, at about 10 months of age, the calf is getting too big and the mother's saying, you know what, I don't want this anymore. She's pushing on me, and they kick them off. And so then that calf goes to exclusively a grass diet. You know, for the first 10 minutes of its life, it drinks milk from its mother and grass, and eats grass. And then we hold those calves over for one more year, and they become a yearling. And we harvest them around 18 months to 24 months of age. They usually weigh about 1,000 to 1,200 pounds live weight, which is an equivalent of a 600 to 600 pound carcass weight. We have black Angus cattle, which are known for high marbling. Marbling is intramuscular fat, the fat that's inside of the, like if you have a ribeye, you see the little white specks. We want that in our beef because the fat is what's flavorful. So there's lots of different grass-fed producers out there, and they're all good in my opinion. And I like all beef. I like corn-fed beef and grass-fed beef and all beef. That's just me. Everybody has a different palate, but because I like corn-fed beef so much, and I'm not necessarily on board with the health benefits, I don't believe it's as healthy as grass-fed, or it's necessarily as humane to put cattle on a corn diet versus just eating grass naturally. But I really like the flavor of it. So my goal is to have grass-fed beef that looks and tastes a lot like corn-fed beef. We also have about 100 sheep, and we sell out of those every single year. They're ready to harvest right when they leave the ranch. They're about 5 months of age to 6 months of age, about 110 pounds live weight. Turns out to be about a 55-pound carcass. Fantastic, incredible flavor on the grass-fed lamb. And they're actually grass-fed and milk-fed because they're still nursing on their mother, usually at 6 months, and that's when we harvest them right in that time frame. As a general rule, it's just me and my dad, and I'm trying to manage the ranch now so that it takes less actual man hours to do what we're doing. And if you look over the years, a lot of people have big tractors and big trucks and all of these types of things because it makes their life easier for doing it the way that we were doing it, not because it's profitable. And so I'm trying to look at it calving times of the years and different types of things so I can minimize my amount of time I'm in a truck or having to have this extra steel equipment that does not make any return on investment for me. So not there yet, but I've jockeyed our calving seasons around. So I have a fall calving herd that I don't feed much to. I have a spring calving herd I don't feed anything to ever, just grass. And the fall calving herd, they get some alfalfa and some grass hay that we put up in the middle of winter. But I think that if we adjust our seasons to when we calve, we won't need to supplement at all, maybe some minerals. So this is the first real year that we've started direct marketing. We've sold beef to consumers in the past, and friends have asked, hey, we want to buy your beef and where can we do it? And we kind of just, said, well, we don't do that. And just because we just didn't know, and we started selling some beef about 3 years ago to some local people, and they said it was the best beef they've ever tasted. It was fantastic. And we said, maybe we're onto something here. We should consider doing something. So the Bay Area is, full of consumers that are educated and understand the difference between corn-fed, grass-fed, organic, and are willing to vote with their dollar. So I can get a premium for our product. We can only grow a finite amount of pounds of beef here. So I want to try and capitalize the highest dollar amount per pound of beef that we sell. And that's why I'm trying to go direct to consumer. On the other hand as well, I believe that, cattle are born to graze on grass and to not necessarily eat cereal grains and corn and that type of thing. And if we can get a superior product on grass and clover, then why not? Well, there's lots of different types of grass, and we live in a very fantastic area to grow grass because of the cool season, weather, and the rains that we get. So by far the two most important factors for our grass, the very first rain of the year and the very last rain of the year. We want one in the fall, a good rain, like 2 inches in the fall, in October preferred, and we want like 2 inches in May. And the reason why we want that is it extends our season. The more number of days that the grass is green, the more tonnage of yield, the fatter the more our cows can harvest and turn into more weight gain that we sell ultimately. So I have a real passion for grass that I look at grass everywhere I'm going. On the side of the road, I look at grass. There's so many different varieties and there's so many different qualities of grass, and I'm not an expert, but I do love to watch it grow and to see the difference in the fields that I plant and overseed. And I love to watch the cows harvest it. If you look around our property, you can see different fields that are grazed really low. And all that's for a reason is, a certain time of the year, we're doing the dance with Mother Nature to graze it so that it doesn't mature and we can get more good yield of high quality nutritious food for the cows off of it. So there's a lot more to learn. I love clover and I love ryegrass. Most of our interaction on the web right now is through a website called Eat Wild and another website called Facebook, which most, online networking. Facebook and Twitter. Twitter hasn't really done much for us, but Facebook, we have like close to 500 fans. And so we can update our fans on what's going on, and love to know them, eventually have them come and visit us, besides just knowing us from our Facebook page. But right now, that's our sole means of marketing, is the website and word of mouth. And I think the word of mouth is really parlaying. We have clients from 3 years ago that have turned in, was one person, now has turned into 10. So if the 10 beef customers that we have in the last few months love it and tell their neighbors, then we're gonna have, hopefully 30. And we can't really handle more than 200 to 300 probably, depending on, how that goes. So right now, that's our current marketing. We haven't gone through the restaurants and supermarkets yet. There's talk about next year potentially being a producer for Whole Foods, which would be fantastic for us, a great outlet that we could still get a premium for our product and sell it to, to one person. So it'd minimize our efforts and still get a premium. But long term, we'd love to have the connection with individuals and have people come visit us, see our operation, see our cattle, learn about what we do, and hopefully they're happy with it and they tell their friends and keep coming back. And we're in an area where there's 6 million people less than 100 miles from here. It shouldn't be hard to get, you know, 1/10 of 1% or less to know about us. So we sell these beeves that we were selling, you know, 5 years ago for $600 or $700 for a beef. We sell now for $1,600 or a little more, and it's still relatively a bargain for the consumer, because if you go to buy the same beefs, the same cut through retail outlets, you'd be looking at more like $3,000 per animal in terms of retail value. So it's almost a 50% discount to the consumer. It's a 50% gain in margin for me. So it's a win-win the way I see it. I'm passionate about helping ag people and protecting the ground so that it's here for future generations. And you know, it's a big deal for somebody to sell their development rights, because these properties were potentially worth, you know, millions and millions of dollars. I had an opportunity to make a difference and to sit on the board, and I've been on the board for 9 years now. I'm terming off this year. I was chairman for 2 years, the last couple years, and it's been a fantastic thing to be able to help the ag community. Even in my short tenure on the board, I think we've protected probably close to 10,000 acres of ground in the last 9 years. And it's exciting to see how we can protect that land, and also how you can help those families. A lot of the families that we've helped have gone on to be really successful because they used that money to fund other entrepreneurial type businesses that they were passionate about. For me, I've been very blessed to have lots of good mentors, but they didn't just come to me. You have to really reach out and talk to people, and not be afraid to really push the limits when it comes to getting to learn. And people want to help other people. As a general rule, if you find somebody who's really successful, knock on their door and say, you know what, help me out here. I want to learn what you did or what you would do different. And if I want to be like you, what can I do? I love this. I could do this every single day. Sure, there's times of the year that, you know, it rains 3 inches a day and I have a lot of work to do on the ranch that's not very fun, but I still love it. I love to watch the cows graze. I love to watch the grass grow. The future, the way I see it, is if I could paint a perfect picture, in the next 3 years we'll be selling 200, maybe 300 beeves a year into the local Bay Area market, direct to consumers, or we'll know the people that are buying it, and 100 to 500 lambs. And potentially, if I could find the right people to come and join our operation, we could do 5,000 chickens and some hogs and a few other things that would work synergistically with our current operation. It would not take much at all to plop a bunch of chickens into this place and not affect our cattle operation. But I don't have the time, energy, or resources to do that right now. So the right person comes along, I'm willing to even bank it, you know, and help them get started, or, you know, do a cost profit share type thing. But I really want to make this a nice place. When people drive by, they can visually say, you know what, that's a beautiful ranch and that guy knows what he's doing. At the same time, I want it to be profitable so that we can have fun and work together as a family and, you know, feel good about what we're doing.
For me, the key strategic insights of Loren Poncia's success are: first, by being an heir to the ranch land, he was able to follow his passion without incurring a large startup debt. Next, he saw that unless he changed the family's business model, the ranch would eventually fail. Lastly, he's focusing his efforts to directly target a specific niche using social media to ensure that he can pass on the ranch to future generations. My next guest, Tripp Carpenter, runs Espenet Furniture in Bolinas, California. His father, Art Carpenter, the creator of the West Coast style of sculptural furniture, passed on his self-taught knowledge to his son. In addition to dreaming up his own functional and artistic woodworking pieces, Tripp continues to produce editions of his father's famous designs, including the wishbone chair.
I was born in San Francisco and I moved to Bolinas when I was 2. And my father bought 17 acres here outside of Bolinas near the lagoon. And we lived in a farmhouse while he was building the roundhouse up the hill. And at about the age of 6, he turned me on. I was playing in the shop and getting in his hair, and He put me on the lathe, a spindle lathe, making candle holders with old files, which he used when he was about 35 to make bowls. And I spent years on that, making candle holders and cannons and toys. And progressed from there to making beautiful bowls. And I did that until I was about, through high school, and then I went to college and, was away teaching in the city and came back about 7 years ago and took over the business when he passed away. Father turned me onto wood since I grew up around it, and the smells of it, his finishes that he came up with, just living with it, playing in the forests. Wood was all around me, and the beauty of wood was all around me. And exposing the grain, turning, really turned me onto it, because it was almost like running through the forest. My father was put through college by his dad. He went to business school at Dartmouth and was being programmed more or less to become a CPA, that's what my grandfather did, a global CPA. And father didn't want to sit at a desk his whole life. In New York, before he came out here, he saw a show, a woodworking show. And there were pieces by Prestini, a bowl maker. He saw these beautiful bowls and said, maybe I could do that. I don't really know if he thought about making a living. I think he was more turned on to making something pretty and beautiful. So he came out here and bought a lathe, and that's how I got going. My father worked almost every day of his life here in the shop. He made a living. He built this house, he built the shop, he raised us, all of the proceeds of furniture. He was not a trust funder. Everything that he made, he had to work for his dollars. So it was hard. And I didn't see much freedom from it. It seemed like a lot of toil, and it is. So I grew up surfing and wanted to be more free, so I never really thought of it as a viable way for me to make a living. So I went to college and became a teacher for a while, and was able to play. What led me back in is Dad called me up one day and he asked me to refinish or to finish a piece because his eyesight was going. So I came back in and sanded a drop leaf table for him that was going back east. And realized that maybe this could work for me because I could basically plan my whole life how I wanted to. No one else was telling me what to do. And ever since then, I kind of faded out from the teaching and started continuing with some of his orders because he couldn't fill them because his eyesight was going. He didn't want to lift wood as much. He was 80 and he was making furniture solid up until he was 80. And so I continued with it and left the teaching. I still do outdoor ed at Point Bonita occasionally. But I realized that this maybe was viable. I could maybe raise the prices of my pieces and his pieces. I mean, he was of the generation of, the Depression and would not charge what I thought he could get for his pieces. He was scared to alienate his customers, which, he couldn't afford to do. He didn't have anything to fall back on. But I did. So I've raised the prices, which was never enough. Father's style, and which I've inherited and probably taken off and I'm doing myself, is more, I know some people call it a muscular, curvilinear, soft, rounded, a style that you want to touch with very little sharp edges. But this is more soft. And I don't know if he came up with that. Sam Maloof certainly did it. But there's been the California roundover has been attributed to him. And also he was making a living doing this stuff, and he needed to mainstream a lot of his processes. He couldn't afford to spend an absurd amount of time on a chair Well, a chair is the hardest thing to make, or a table. So rounding the corners and sanding them smooth also made things flow a little faster. The roundhouse, it was put in Life magazine in December, I think 9th of 1966. And that was a huge jump for Father, probably, because that was Life magazine was large then. And it put Dad on the map big time. It first started to be built in 1960 approximately, and took 8 years to build. I don't think it was ever completely completed. There was always, finish work to be done forever. But it was an imagination that he had of building something circular before circular was hip and domes were hip. I don't know where he got the idea from, but it was a 3-level half circular house, 3 half levels, and it was all made by hand by him and an apprentice, and every weekend they would work up the hill here, and steadily for 8 years. And it was an example of his imagination of bringing in the outdoors into the house. There was a pool a fish pond that went underneath the foundation and went into the living room. It's where the fish can go back out and in, and was cold as hell. Initially I started selling to Father's old clients, but since I started turning when I was 6 too, I've been putting out bowls like this, mostly salad bowls, and you can see some over here, but there was a great market in Sausalito. Fine Woodworking was a fantastic gallery for 20 years on Bridgeway, and I sold a lot through there, and a lot of clients that met my work continued with me after that closed. And then I've done numerous shows to show my work, like the Mill Valley Crafts Fair, and a lot of local crafts fairs, the Bolinas Crafts Fair, which is quite good. And most of my stuff, though, is, I think, word of mouth. One person buys something beautiful, and people go, "Oh, you got to go look at this guy's stuff," which is the way my father worked too. Here's a piece of Claro walnut that a client gave me that has been drying in his backyard for about 35 years, and he's hired me to turn a bowl out of it. So that's what we're going to do. So the first thing I do is try to true it and make sure it won't fly off. Basic method of sharpening these gouges. Very simple. Try to keep it at the same angle and just rotate it in your hands. A lot of times the bowl flies off doing this because you really can get aggressive. Puts a lot of torque on the bowl. So basically I just start taking it down, and for me the whole beauty of, one of the beauties of doing the bowls is to make it all the same thickness. So I take it down slowly. Well, not that slowly, and then I start taking calipers to it to make sure she's even all the way through, even the bottom. Maybe the bottom's a little thicker, but I like it to be like almost eggshell. But I want it to be usable, so I don't take it down. I could take it down where it's almost not usable. So I leave it maybe 3/8 max, 1/4 inch probably. would be a good usable thickness here. But you can make it paper thin if you want, especially with these beautiful gouges. I would say that if you're going to get into this racket or trade, have something to fall back on. You know, whether it's teaching or whether it's carpentry or something that's definitely viable to fall back on. I wouldn't go into it without some monetary support behind you, at least a little bit. So I think most people are hobbyists at it. And I probably should be. But I'm not, and you know, you can make it, but it takes a lot of effort. And it takes a lot of enthusiasm. And it's a lot of hard work. It's physical and it's also mental in the sense of designing and coming up with new ideas continually, because you don't want to become stagnant. And I could just stay with one of my dad's pieces and mimic these for the rest of my life, which would be fine because I love them. But how boring would that be? I'm trying not to live on my father's coattails, and I think a lot of people may put that upon me, but hopefully I'm not. In a lot of ways I wouldn't be here without him, obviously, but I'm not trying to completely copy him and take that. I want to come up with my own ideas, or at least use his ideas and exemplify them in new ways. But he definitely, a lot of his designs are hard to, and you wouldn't want to change because they are exceptional. If money is no object, you become lazy. And your drive, as I've seen with a lot of people who don't have to make a living, is lacking. That's not entirely true, but I think you need the push. You need the hunger to want to do any art well. It helps push it along. And it helps for the creative process. I may be wrong, to come up with a new idea takes tons of time, and I don't pay myself for that. It would make, having money always makes life easier, but I don't think it's a necessity, and it might be a detriment.
I see the key strategic insights of Tripp Carpenter's success as, first, by being trained from a young age, he was able to learn not just technical proficiency, but also how to work with clients. Next, he figured out how to create a work-life balance that fits his lifestyle. And lastly, he continues to not only honor his father's fine designs, but also innovate his own beautiful craftsmanship. Today's guests didn't simply take over the family business. They took the time to transform their companies to better match their own values and those of their customers, making them poised to achieve long-term success. I hope that this episode has given you many good ideas for increasing your business with passion.